Hi everyone, Bear from Bear Reads Books. Welcome back to my channel, here for another book review. It's a beautiful sunny afternoon, so back in my garden, and I have just finished in the last couple of days Girl, Woman, Other by Bernadine Evaristo. This was a buddy read with Natalie from my reading days, and we both have wonderful things to say about this book, so I hope you're going to join myself and Natalie and try and catch both of our reviews of this book. I'm going to say straight up, this is a 5-star read. Somehow I found myself reading both Man Booker winners, this and the Testaments, at the same time. I didn't mean to, I maybe wish I didn't, but this was fantastic. I'm not feeling the love quite so much for the Testaments. I'll explain when I get to that review, but this was amazing. To quickly explain why, or a little bit about the plot without giving too much away. The plot is conversations or experiences of a number of women across many decades. So there's modern stories right now of women in Britain, and there are stories from the early 20th century of women in Britain and how they ended up coming to emigrate to Britain. So lots of immigration stories, lots of the female experience in Britain throughout the 20th and 21st century. And not just the female experience, but black female experience in Britain. And the stories are, at the beginning at least, only just touch upon each other. They only just in some way cross over, and this is what I struggled with in the beginning. I knew it was meant to. I didn't think they did a particularly good job at the beginning of convincing me why I was reading this book, or giving me a really good plot thread as to why this was happening. And I think for the first chapter, and each chapter is divided into the story of 3 women, so three mini chapters within a part or a chapter. And I think for the first part, with the first 3 stories of 3 women, it lost me a little bit because I couldn't see the threads well enough, and I couldn't understand what Bernadine was trying to open up for me. It progressively, as the book got further in, those ties became more and more obvious, with a few bumps along the way. There was one section that was a complete departure from what I'd read right up until that point, and it really put me off. And I remember messaging Natalie when we got to this section. I said, I found this really challenging. I don't know why this story of this woman is in here. And the very next story after that, I don't know why, after listening to all of these stories of very strong and very powerful, very intelligent women, that we get to this story about a woman choosing to sleep with her daughter's husband. And that was very challenging to me after listening to a lot of very powerful stories. And the 2 that sat together was this one, where a woman chooses to have an affair with her daughter's husband, and the one prior to that, which was a white woman's experience of emigrating to Britain. And it really sat in contrast to everything that had come before that, because it was really about the black female experience of British people. And there were those 2 stories together that threw me. And I remember having this conversation with Natalie, and I think she had the same or a similar reaction to it, and it confused me. Everything from that point on really brought everything together. So don't let what I've just said now, don't let you stop listening to the review. It's still a 5-star review. It is still a phenomenal work of literature. It just took me personally a while to get there, for me to see what Bernadine was trying to lay out for me. But the writing is glorious, is so beautiful in these quite stark, like, don't expect paragraphs and paragraphs of descriptions and beautiful flowery language. It is sharp and powerful and very pointed in its brief descriptions. What it's very, very good at is describing how people feel in their experiences, and I think in some ways this was the challenge for me, because it was less about the plot and what was happening. It was more about how people felt as the world revolved around them, or as they moved around in the world. But the characters themselves are absolutely engaging and mesmerising. And I wish I could talk more about the plot, because as the plot evolves throughout the stories of these women, you really do immerse yourself in everything Bernadine is laying out for you. And even so, towards the end, each chapter becomes its own, each little story of individual women become their own revelation, where you realise so much more of what has come before, that it's a piece in a puzzle that you're finally getting. I find it quite astounding. And I wish I could lay out more of the plot without giving the story away. Let me open the book just so I can read out some of the names and jog my memory of some of the women. So just as an example of some of the women we're dealing with here, we have Amma and her daughter Yaz. Amma has written a play. She's a playwright, and her daughter Yaz. Amma is a lesbian feminist from the 1970s and 80s, and her daughter Yaz is a strong, very headstrong, proud black woman, but very, very young, and has lots of friends that go out drinking and partying all the time. But so those two are key and central characters to the entire plot structure. But in there you have Yaz's mother, you have her aunts and sisters and grandmothers, and this central family, and all of its tendrils in many different directions and across many different generations, is what binds this novel together. As sometimes it shoots off in different directions. It might shoot off in a husband's side of the family, or in someone, or in a school teacher's side of the family. You know, a school teacher who's a friend of someone, so it might shoot off in a different direction altogether. But generally, it's revolving around this play that Amma has written and is having performed at the National Theatre in London. And her various friends and family and long lost anybody is at this production, and it's a lot of reminiscing. It's a lot of storytelling about women's experience throughout the 20th and 21st century, with this family at the centre. I wish I could give more away. Hopefully that entices you to read it. And I would love to hear your thoughts. If you have read it, please put your comments and thoughts down below. Keep an eye out for Natalie's thoughts on this book as well. It was a very emotional read for me, because it took so long for me to not enjoy it. I enjoyed it all the way through. I really did love it, but it just took so long for me to get it. And that's not a fault of Bernadine Evaristo and her storytelling ability. That is my fault entirely. I went into it thinking it was one thing when it wasn't, and it took me a while to shift my own perspective of what this should be. So it challenged all the perceptions of what I thought a novel should be, of what I thought a story about women or about the black experience in Britain should be. It challenged all of my thoughts about all of those things, which is the wonderful thing about literature in general, is its ability to challenge everything you ever know and think is right about the world. And for that, Bernadine, I am truly thankful. Thank you. I hope you enjoy it. Keep an eye out for Natalie's video as well. It'll be coming up soon. Enjoy your day, everyone, wherever you may be, and I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.